Hey, and welcome back to Those Who Put in the Work. I'm Codie Sanchez, and this is the Big Deal podcast, and this is a moneymaker. Little bite-sized episode for people who want to make some more money by building things. You guys are rare. All right, let's get into it this week. So this week is perfect for how to be a CEO people love, often an oxymoron, and also what does it even mean to have your people love you? Because it is tough love in some ways. When I think about my business here at Contrarian Thinking, and we've been building this bad boy to have a 9-figure holding company, multiple businesses that do 8 figures each, a team that's locally based. I've wanted to build this business different than just about anything else. So when I was in finance and I built multiple businesses at First Trust and State Street and Entourage Effect Capital and all these different businesses, in finance, the thing is you have a very small group of people. So for instance, Warren Buffett manages a business that does hundreds of billions of dollars a year with 37 people. And in private equity, that's pretty similar. So you have these small teams that are super high performing. You really don't have a lot of entry level or low level talent. People come to you fully baked. You also typically in finance have very strict incentive structures. So like if we do this deal and we make money, people make money. And so it's very direct one-to-one correlation. This is important because most businesses aren't run this cleanly. And so as I've built a media business, I've realized, oh wow, the way that I build this business has to be totally different. So obviously I love creating content. We post like 50 pieces of it across all my platforms. And if you've ever created content, you know the uphill battle it can be to ideate, write, produce, film, video, and then you have to edit it all. So one of my favorite tools to use for this is Riverside. You've probably heard about it before, but I don't think people realize that it's revolutionized the podcast space by allowing creators all over the world to do the recording in 4K, regardless of internet speed. But they've just released an update that I think any creator is going to love. So along with the high quality video and audio that they've kind of become known for, you can have editing software so you can edit any video content directly in Riverside. If your team's a little bit more bougie like mine and wants to record the video themselves, and then you can upload it to Riverside so you can use their amazing AI tools afterwards. It can transcribe your video, add customizable caption, analyze that transcript to cut out any dead space in the video. And my favorite part, they have this AI editor feature that will pull short form from clips from my content so we can squeeze all the juice of it out from the many hours it takes to create it. If you think time is money like I do, then Riverside has given me and my team back lots of time, aka money. So I love these guys. And because I love you, I got you guys a deal. So try Riverside for yourself with the link in this episode's description. You can sign up for free using the link and discount code Cody at checkout for a discount on any paid plan. I cannot be the type of CEO I was before when I ran a finance company. And I was like, hey, you either hit these numbers by the end of the week, you either hit these numbers by the end of the quarter and you make millions, or you're fired, which is really how finance works. It's like you either are a top performer and you make millions of dollars, or you're fired, or we burn you out like crazy. So when I worked at Goldman back in the day, we worked 70, 80-hour weeks. There was no time off. We were in the office nonstop. I was in a cubicle all day. I had to wear a suit the entire time. I was always in before the boss. I never left before the boss left. That was just like what was expected. And now the culture has actually shifted, and I do not think you can run teams like that anymore, which is probably why the biggest consulting and financial companies have the highest turnover. Goldman Sachs used to cut 20% of its staff every single year, no matter what. Dead. And the big top performers, on average, an analyst stays at Goldman about 2 years, which is about how long I lasted. Anything past that, it does show that somebody has a high level of grit and dedication because it's super tough, but it's also not that much fun. And, I was talking with one of my other girlfriends she stayed at Goldman for a long time. She became super senior at the company. And she said it was really interesting because she watched one of her fellow MDs when her mother got sick. She had to take a lot of time off. She was in investment banking. And when she had to take a lot of time off, her colleagues started slowly stealing her investment banking clients. So she had this woman that had been at Goldman for 10, 11, 12 years and had committed her life to Goldman. Like no kids, no marriage. She was married to this place. She made a lot of money for it. But the second that she couldn't pour everything back into that business, her friends, her colleagues started stealing her clients. And I think that is a perfect example of why those cultures don't last long term. Because who wants to work at a place where the second that life happens to you, and it'll happen to all of us, they're going to not maybe fire you immediately, but they're going to steal from you, not help you cover, And then eventually, if you don't hit your goals, you will be fired almost immediately. There's really no second chances. And I think that is why most CEOs aren't loved, because sometimes business does necessitate a wartime CEO, which was famously popularized by the CEO of Dell, that you can have a peacetime CEO, nice, buddy, no big deal, foosball tables. That was everybody in tech up until the last 2.5 years. And then over the last 2.5 years, we've realized, oh my God, we have to hit our numbers and become profitable. And so people turn and become wartime CEOs. I think you have to have a mixture of both. Today, I want to dive into some ways that you can lead with a little bit more love. And maybe a word that I don't think is used enough in leadership, which is humor. So I think humor is one of the most underrated business tools that we have in relationships, in life, in everybody. I do believe the truth that you shouldn't call people in your business your family, because at the end of the day, you're probably not going to fire mom and dad unless they're really fucking awful, but you might have to let somebody go from one of your businesses. Now, I do think you can say that they are your friends, and I do think you could say that they are your team. Because a high-performing team is really what? It's a group of individuals coming together with a shared goal and mission for a period of time in their life that may become incredible friends together, but may not travel through time together on the exact same team. But even after a member has left the team, they could still be buddies over the long term. And that is what I aim for at my companies, a high-performing team with a bunch of people that are friends. Because I do think you can be friends with your employees, just not the negative way that people think about it. If I couldn't joke and be friendly with my employees, it would be miserable to come to work every day. We spend way more time here than just about anything else. And so why wouldn't we choose to do business with friends? It's way more fun. What's interesting is if you break this down sort of mathematically, 25-year-olds spend on average about 275 minutes per day alone. But the next biggest segment, they spend about 200 minutes or 2.5 hours a day with their colleagues outside of work. So the average person spends about 90,000 hours, they say, of their lifetime at work. So if you do not get to work with your friends, then what are you doing for the entire day? If you've ever worked alongside somebody that you don't like, you know how perfectly miserable that can be. And I've been there. And what you have to realize as a leader is that your team feels that on steroids, because if they have to work with somebody that they don't like, unlike you as the boss, you can control the narrative, right? You can walk away. You can tell that person you don't want to speak right now. You cannot have a meeting. But if they are a fellow employee for your employers, for your employees, it's a lot harder for them to create their own boundaries. And so every time you have somebody that your teammates do not like, it's one thing, they don't have to be best buds. But if there is something toxic happening in the culture, you've got to move them on. Because I truly think that half the world's problems for young men and women today could be solved with long nights, building something that they care about together, becoming better humans. And so that includes friends. So how do you bring humor into your business and into your employer? Well, I think first, it starts with you. Nothing better than making a little fun of yourself if you want to start showing other people that it's okay to loosen up slightly. Especially as the CEO, sometimes you could be sort of intimidating. I've gotten told that I am sometimes. I remember I really knew that one of the CEOs I hired, shout out Bobby, I was going to love after members of his team started giving him a hard time. You see, Bobby drinks like an insane amount of Monsters. Like, he's a very large human, but he drinks way too many Monsters. I like that because I think anybody who's like psychopathic enough to midday Monster drink, early morning Monster drink, is probably going to be an animal and absolutely crush it at work. And that is exactly what he does. But more than that, I loved it because I saw his team when he came over and started running a business for me. His team would comment on the things that he talked about with monster emojis. And I thought that was really funny. It kind of showed that his team knows who he is and makes little jokes about it. Now, he's hard driving, but they've all sort of bonded over the hard together. A lot of people ask me, how could you get better friends? How could you get people to go through time together with you? You and Chris seem like you have a great network. The best place to start that is where you work. Because when you go through hard things together with your friends, the bond solidifies. And so that's why I like building hard things in business, because I get to see who shows up. Who's the type of person I want to spend life with? And Bobby was exactly that. One of the examples that I did in the beginning, which the team will laugh at about this, is when I first started on the internet, I said I would never dance on the internet. And I still stand by that statement, except One time I did on TikTok. I did a horribly embarrassing dance that I will not repeat now. And that dance I circulated as like, oh my God, you guys look at this. This is so embarrassing that I did it. That dance has followed me for like the better part of a year and a half across multiple team members. It's been gifted down by people who have changed job positions. And anytime, I'm saying something silly or they want to make a funny PowerPoint, they throw that up in there. So how can you make fun of yourself so that your team feels comfortable and feels like you guys are vibing? I think that easy way to do it is you kind of turning yourself into a meme. So at our company, we got a big meme culture here. And, started a couple different ways, but I have a friend, Nick, who he only sends messages to me that are memes. Do you guys have any friends like that? Like, it's like you don't actually talk. It's just memes back and forth. And what I thought about when I was watching that is, man, every time Nick texts me, what's my natural reaction? Well, my physical reaction is to laugh. So when I get a text message from Nick, I open it because I'm like, I bet this is going to be funny, right? He has trained me like Pavlov's dog to think that I'm going to get a little treat when I get a text message from him. Now, sorry, Mom, but like how when you haven't talked to your mom for a while, she'll be like, well, I miss you too, honey. Well, I haven't seen you in a while. And she'll like text you stuff like that. And so I know when I get a text from my mom, I'm like, oh man, what did I do? Is she going to tell me it's bad that I haven't called her in a while? Probably all of you have a friend that or a friend or a family member where you're like, oh no, what's going to come up with this text, right? So you train people the way that they're going to respond with you. And it's the same with our team. So we had a member of the team, Joe, and he sort of famously kept this thing called a meme folder, which I thought was genius. And inside of the meme folder was a bunch of memes from the team over the years. And he actually passed it on to another member of the team when he left to go build his own business. And I thought this was so funny because one, you're leaving a little bit of a legacy. And two, you can be sort of the vibe giver inside of a company. And so I think that is a really cool idea to do continuously. One way that I install memes sort of nonstop and what I do is I think about selling inside of my company just as much as I think about selling outside of my company. So I 1,000% do more presentations internally than I do externally. Then those presentations often will have a little meme in them. One of our more famous memes at the company that we use a lot now is called Hold My Beer. And so at the company, when we try to hit a goal, oftentimes people will be like, all right, it's a hold my beer moment. This allows you to have group interaction and verbiage and language, which is one of the most important parts to cult building, also culture building, which is really not that different at a company. We just took our portfolio company insights and put it into a step-by-step scaling course for you and anybody wanting to scale a small business. It's linked in the show notes if you're looking to grow your business to make a little bit more money with less pain and more profit. This thing is for you. The next thing that I think is really important to talk about is your people are watching every move that you make. They're listening to what you're saying, but they're really watching the moves that you make. And so I do something that I call leave with a shine. Your people actually are watching the way that you let people leave a company more than anything else. They are watching the way that you let high performers go and the way that you let low performers go. And when you let a high performer go and you talk shit about them, they will never forget that because they know that if they're a high performer, that is how you are going to treat them when they leave. And so it's really important to watch the way that you let people leave your company, even if they're the ones leaving or if you let them go. Now, I'm not a believer in bullshitting people. So if somebody leaves my company and is let go or leaves what wasn't a right fit, I'm not going to lie to them and be like, they were an incredible performer. Thank you so much for everything that you did to this company while you're here. If they didn't do that much, I'm going to say, I'm excited for your next opportunity and I wish you the best moving forward. I'm going to be honest. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for people that weren't a good fit for our company. I'm not going to make them look bad, but I might say at our company, it is required for you to do the things that you say that you do. And we can't have people at our company that don't do the things that they say that they're going to do. And so we've decided to part ways and wish them all the best, but this was not the fit for them. And so I think your employees want to know you're going to be honest. You're also not going to talk shit. And so, for instance, we had a member of our team that I had mentioned before, Joe. He was based in Minneapolis, and the team are all in Austin, and we just really needed somebody here locally to manage the content. And it was becoming too hard with Joe being remote. Too many things were getting missed. And he actually proactively brought it up to me and was like, I don't know if this is working that great that I'm not here. Now, I, of course, tried to talk him into moving, and love you, Joe. I think that this would have been an incredible opportunity for him to build here in Austin. But with all due respect, he had a new fiance. They're very tied to Minneapolis and he wanted to stay there. And so that was incredible. I wished him well. I told him that, hey, when you need your first investor for your new company, when you need help and you get stuck, call me. We text each other still to this day. And when he left, I told everybody the story. I said, you know what? Good for him. He could have drugged this out more. And he was right, because when he left the company, we 2 to 3x'd our short form growth because we were just able to move faster locally. And thankfully, that's not really saying anything bad about Joe. It's just saying he had the foresight to say that. And I thought that was really incredible. And your people are watching you when your best people leave. So be careful how you treat them. The other thing I'd say is, as an employee too, always really good to keep your options on the table as opposed to burn the bridge. Joe let me have 30-day notice, which I thought was pretty incredible. Joe helped me try to find the next new person. And as often as you can do that and not taper off poorly at your prior company, those people will end up helping you for life. And, there's many instances where I ended up investing in somebody's company because they were awesome with the way they left. One more thing. Anything that you tell your employees at your company is going to get repeated. So be really careful the words you use and hold other people accountable for the words that they use in your company. So for instance, I had one employee, this was at my last firm, First Trust. This employee, she called one of our clients an idiot. And not to his face, but, in what was Slack at the time, we used a different system, but, basically said, hey, oh yeah, typical idiot, client wants XYZ, wants all the money with none of the headache, blah, blah, blah. Kind of said something like that. Seemingly innocuous. But here's a problem. If we treat and talk about our clients as idiots, do you think that we will serve them better than anybody else? Do you think that they will want to buy from us? Will they feel like we think highly of them when we're calling them idiots behind their back? Of course not. So I immediately sat down with her and I said, hey, at this company, we can't eat, we can't go on trips, we can't have this nice office unless we get really smart people to buy from us. And so we can never, even if we disagree with a client, call them names. That's just a rule I have here. And listen, you can do whatever you want. If you want to call people an idiot and that's how you want to communicate, you have every right to do that. You just can't do it at this company. So you get to kind of choose between the two. And of course, she said, oh, hey, I won't do that again. But it is a really important reminder that I said, now you did this in a group channel, so other people saw it, which means that I have to now address it with the company. I'm not doing this to call you out, but I do have to call this action out. So you're aware. I'm not asking for her permission to do it. I'm making sure that I set the vibe. I set the culture fit, which is really important inside of your company. And then another thing I think we've got to realize with friends is that friends and team members both can have boundaries, like we talked about in the beginning. On the last Chris Voss episode, if you guys haven't watched it, you should go back and watch it. It's incredible. He talks about there are 3 types of negotiators, but really I say communicators. And communicators just mean another employee in the company. There are accommodators, there are analysts, and there are assertives. When you get together with your friends and with your employees, you're going to find that you probably employ all of them. I am an assertive, which means that mutual respect first is important to me, and I can come off as emotional, like aggressively emotional, or harsh. I know that about myself. Now we've got an analyst. They're like data first mindset, and they can come off cold as distant. And then we've got accommodators who are relationship first and they're friendly, but sometimes they can be too talkative. So can you imagine what happens when you get people in a room where one's super assertive, harsh, respect first, one's data oriented, quiet, kind of cold seeming, and another one is chatty Cathy and also all about the relationship. Well, the relationship employee only really wants to engage for you to feel good. That's the most important part to them. We want to make sure everybody feels good. The assertive's like, I want to get this done. I want to be efficient. I want to be fast. And so you have to realize in your friends and family, you're going to have to set some boundaries because you guys are going to communicate differently. And so for instance, at Contrarian Thinking right now, we have one member of the team who is a total accommodative, which means incredible employee, works really hard, wants to talk forever. As an assertive, that makes me want to bore my eyes out. And probably when I communicate with her sometimes, she's like, God, could you stop being so intense? And could we just have a nice conversation? Because I want you to feel nice and we both want to like each other. We had to have the tough conversation of like, hey, my communication style is pretty abrupt and specific and to the point. And I realize that yours is much more, wide-ranging, broad, and you really want to get to know me. In order for me to get done what I need to get done, I can't communicate in this way. But I want you to know that it's really important to me that you know. And then I listed off a bunch of stuff that I knew about her. Hey, Brad, your husband, is super important to you. That I'd love to have, the cat over to hang out with the dog one time. That, it's really important for me to go paddleboarding on the weekend too. And we could do some of those things together. But in this office setting, this is the way that I have to communicate. Just because you're friends doesn't mean you can't have boundaries. In fact, the worst thing you could do in the world for an accommodative is not tell them this stuff, and they're always wondering why you're running away from them. So think about that with your teams. When it comes to being a CEO that your people love, make sure that you don't confuse being loved and being liked. There are very many CEOs that I loved the way they pushed me. I loved the vision that they had for the company. I loved their ability to speak. I loved the way that they got things done. But I might not have liked a lot of the things that they did. I might not have liked them as a human. We might not have been best buddies. The hard part about being a CEO is you got to give people the tough truth, or what I call sort of the tough love. And the tough love in some instances is in things like, I had an employee, she was at my financial company, and she could have been amazing. Like, she just had that fire in her, you can tell. She always did what she said she was going to do. She was going to be one of my MDs, my managing directors in Latin America. I wanted to promote her badly from an inside sales rep where you're in the office making phone calls all day to somebody out in the field that goes and meets with financial investors. And that's a big change. We're talking a difference from making, $150,000 a year to you could have made $1 million a year in the outside sales rep role. And this young woman had just gotten married, and her husband was also in finance. And her husband was not very supportive of the thing that she wanted, which was to go and work in Latin America on this incredible opportunity and potentially make $1 million a year plus. And I sort of watched her wither away from the person that she could have been, trying to be the person somebody else wanted her to be. Now, there's no more sacred union than a husband and a wife, and I would never get in between the two of those. And so I really kept my opinions to myself and just said, hey, this is an incredible opportunity. This is what it is. You need to think about what works for you. But eventually, she said no. She got passed up. Somebody else got the next role, and she eventually no longer worked at the company. I think probably it's pretty painful to watch somebody else achieve your goal when you know that you could do it. And I always remember that because at the end, right before she left, I sat her down and I said, I do not want to push you one way or another, but I want you to understand what you're giving up, because at least then you'll never have a regret if you make a decision based on having as much context as you can. And we talked about the situation, and we talked about the business and the opportunity, and she still decided to go the other way. And, I'm not going to get into her personal life or what ended up happening from there, but needless to say, she did not love that conversation where I said, I think that you are going to regret this decision, and you need to at least have a very hard conversation with your husband about it and make sure this is what's right for your family, because you probably won't get another shot at this, at least for another 5 years. You as the leader sometimes have to do the thing that nobody else wants to do, which is tell people the truths, even and especially when they're not going to like it. All right, Moneymaker series, how to be a CEO that people love, and sometimes the CEO that gives people tough love. The difference between a business that you hate and one that makes you a lot of money and is fun are your people. And if you don't take care of them, they won't take care of you. And that I can promise. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. Make sure you give us a little review wherever you're listening to it. That is the only way we grow. And I want to make sure that we make some more podcasts for you guys. So tell me in the comments what else you think we're missing, what else you want to cover, what other burning questions you have. And those questions will become the next podcast. See you next time.
Generally, people who feel like they give a about way too many things, it's not an issue about the caring, it's the extent of how much they care. It's not about not giving what other people think. It's about finding something that is more important than what other people think. If you don't have anything more important going on in your life, then what other people think about you is going to dictate everything else.
Mark Manson, the best-selling author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a is here today to break down how to stop faking confidence and start earning it. You'll learn the psychology behind real self-belief, why trying to feel good all the time is actually what's holding you back. If you've ever second-guessed yourself or talked yourself out of taking a shot, this episode is your playbook for unstoppable confidence built from action, not affirmation.
The more you try to feel confident all the time, the more aware you become of all of the different areas that you're actually not confident. It's when you stop trying to be confident all the time that you actually feel comfortable in your pursuits, knowing that it might not work out, which is confidence.
If confidence is really just the comfort with failure, then how do you get more comfortable with failure?
I will say this, I would say probably...
I hate this answer. If you want to change your life right now, these are the habits that you need to start adopting. What are they?
I think it's...
I want to start with some of my favorite tweets of yours.
Okay.
I just went down a deep rabbit hole on...
Sure.
I haven't been in your tweets in a minute. I guess it's called
Cody.
X's. I don't even know what we're doing. I know. And so there were a bunch. You had one that you pinned that's like a new favorite of mine, which is you said, paradoxically, the less you try to convince people to like you, the more likable you become. Is that true? And why?
I think when people try to make you like them, when they try to control your reaction to them, it is like inherently off-putting. I think we generally respect people who respect our agency, right? So if I come in here and I just start saying all the things you want to hear and trying to impress you and like be like all what I think you want to see, it actually puts a lot of pressure on you to make me feel happy and okay. And paradoxically, that makes you feel bad. So,
and do we not even realize that? Like, do you think people don't even realize the things they're doing to turn off other people?
I think so. If you think about it, it's like a very childish kind of tactic. Like, I think when we're young, it's intuitive. It just feels intuitive of like, oh, I want people to like me. So let me just like agree with what everybody says. At some point that stops working and you kind of realize you're like, oh, I'd rather be disliked for who I am than liked for something I'm not. Right? Because you start feeling like even if you do get somebody to like you, it feels icky, and it doesn't feel like you're being appreciated for who you authentically are. So, and I think this takes place in a lot of. I mean, obviously this is like a social phenomenon, but people do this in dating. People do it with coworkers. They do it in business. It's like all the ass kissing, the yes men. Like it backfires eventually.
It's interesting because we've had many a walk on Venice Beach Boulevard or whatever that is, the boardwalk.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons, I like talking to you so much is you have this weird experience, which is that you've been on the internet for how many years now?
I published my first blog post in 2007.
In 2007.
Yeah.
And you've obsessed kind of this entire time in varying ways, it seems to me at least, about human psychology. And once through the lens of like men and dating, and you saw one whole era, which was like the how do I get girls to like me era, right? And then you went through an era of like, I don't care if anybody fucking likes me, fuck all of you guys. And also, how do I become confident with that and whatever? And so I've really appreciated your advice. So I'm excited that you're here because, man, we've both met a lot of people on the internet.
Yeah.
Some of the advice is like, sounds really good, that it's terrible advice.
Oh, yeah.
And you have like a very strong moral compass.
Yes.
An ethical and moral lens, which you're like, no, I will not give that advice anymore because it's not real.
Yeah.
Or, oh, hey, I did mess up on that. Sorry about that, which is also really rare on the internet. So I want to go through like a bunch of questions that I think about and then a bunch of questions from people who are listening. And I want you to take it through like a couple different eras.
Okay.
Like even the era of like, now we're almost back again to how do I get women to like me? Because
it's been weird, honestly.
Right?
Like it's funny because I self-published a men's dating book back in 2011. And I just thought that era of my life was closed. And it's funny because like Gen Z men are showing back up and that book's starting to sell really well again.
No way.
So it's
Wait,
like,
what was that one called?
It's called Models Attract Women Through Honesty. And I really wrote it to kind of be the antidote to all the pickup artist stuff back in the day. Like, dude, you don't need to wear a fuzzy hat and like do magic tricks in a bar. Like you can just be a good human being. Yeah. And it's interesting because it's kind of catching a second life with the next generation.
Yeah, because they're having less sex.
It's a
less
mess.
relation.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
dating's
mess.
a mess right now. Yeah.
Yeah, what is out there in dating right now? What are you hearing from your millions of followers on all different platforms?
From what I can tell, so I have a couple theories, but like I would say the primary one is I personally think that the apps are negative ROI for people's dating outcomes.
Well,
And it's primarily because they're optimizing for the wrong things. If you think about it, like I don't know how long you've been with your husband, but like if you think back to when you were single, you probably had the experience of you would often meet somebody and it wouldn't immediately occur to you, like you wouldn't immediately be attracted to them. Like maybe you would talk to them for a little bit, get to know them, and then they kind of like they'd win you over. Like you'd have to like kind of warm up to them a little bit. And the reason that happens is just that like we're poor judges of who's going to make us happy in a relationship. Like we often don't understand the traits in a person that is compatible with us. And so when you get on an app, the app asks you for all these superficial traits that you want. It's like, oh, I want somebody who's, 6'5" in finance and like all this stuff. And it's like, it's all the resume shit that doesn't actually generate any sort of chemistry or connection with somebody. Whereas all the things that actually do matter, the personality traits and the background and the personal values and how the person experiences intimacy, the sense of humor, like all those things, they're hidden. So you can't match for those things. You have to meet the person first to understand if you actually have those things, if you're compatible with the person in that way. So I just think the dating apps have sorted for the wrong thing. And it's a classic case of people also not, because people don't know what they want, the dating apps are supplying a demand that is actually not solving the people's problems.
Oh, man. So, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, everything you're talking about is about this. Like people want to find love because they're chasing happiness. People want to find relationships because they don't want to be alone. Like it's all sort of about what do we want as a human? It's like part of this human experience. And I'm wondering, like, I don't know. I think I read somewhere that you had written between books and blog posts. It was something wild. You're like 17,542 blog posts. I don't remember the number, but it's a lot. And one of the lines you said is that real success isn't actually about making money or being happy. What do you mean by that?
Both money and happiness they're like oxygen. When you don't have any, they solve everything. But when you have some, it solves nothing, right? So yeah, if you're broke, go get some money. Like that's definitely going to solve your problems. And if you're really miserable or depressed, then like, yeah, obviously get some happiness. But if you're already kind of at a steady baseline, like you're in a stable position, chasing more, it's inefficient in a lot of ways. Like it's not actually going to satisfy you in any meaningful way. I personally think that like on the long term, like if you look at if you zoom out and look at your entire lifespan from beginning to end, the best way to define success is simply to feel as though you spent your time well. It's the old deathbed question, right? It's like when you're 80 and laying on your deathbed, are you going to look back and say like, I'm glad I did that? Or are you going to say like, wow, I wish I didn't do so much of that? And to me, that boils down to meaning and purpose. Right? If you have meaning and purpose, if you are finding something meaningful and purposeful in your life to pursue and to chase after, whether that's building something or, starting a family or giving yourself to a cause, generally speaking, like that's the sort of stuff that decades later we look back on and we're like, I'm really glad I spent time doing that.
And do you think this is like a global phenomenon? Like you went to and spent time in the happiest country in the world, right? What did you find? Like, what do the happiest people in the world have? Or was it something totally else you found there?
Well, the funny thing, so the technically the happiest country in the world is Finland. And if you talk to the Finnish, they're like, what? Really? And the conclusion I came to is that I think Finnish culture has they have this ethos of kind of low expectations, which is very opposite of how Americans are. But there's this sense of just being satisfied very easily. Like it's kind of a good thing to be satisfied. And I think that there's some wisdom in that, right? Like this isn't to say that you shouldn't chase things or you shouldn't have goals or dreams or whatever, but it's also like have those goals and dreams, but also while understanding that they're not going to solve anything. Like it's a fun game you're playing. Chase after that 10-year goal. Hopefully you achieve it. That's great. But just understand that like once you get on the other side of achieving it, you're still going to be the same stressed, anxious person who has problems and gets in fights with his mother. And it's all you're going to be the same person with the same shit going on. So you need to like ultimately find something that's worth the struggle. That feels like it makes the struggle worth it.
When you're talking to, like, I think predominantly a lot of young men on the internet, and I love your YouTube videos, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you have quite a few where you talk about the habits that lead to like successful or happy lives. I know there's no hacks to any of this. And at the end of our 3-step process, their life will probably be totally fixed.
Yeah.
But if you had to give somebody, man, if you want to change your life right now, if you want to be more successful in life, these are the habits that you need to start adopting. What are they?
If I had a 16-year-old in front of me and my job was to optimize them to have the most healthy and successful life possible, I would actually start with social skills. Because it's on the psychological side, like pretty much all of the research around happiness essentially boils down to the quality of your relationships. Do you have people in your life, A, and then do you have trusting, intimate relationships with those people? Like, do you have people in your life that you feel like have your back, that you can trust, that you can go to with a problem, who aren't going to judge you for making a mistake? And on the psychological side, that's like the 80-20. And then on the professional side, as you know, like relationships are also everything. Like it's nobody ever did anything great by themselves. Like there's no incredible successful business story that they did it alone. It's like you either built an amazing team or you had an amazing team of people backing you and helping you and supporting you.
Yeah, I was reading a study the other day about how there's something like a 20 to 30% increase in salary just from thinking about increasing your EQ and really ignoring IQ, that IQ almost has no correlation between monetary success.
Yeah.
Do you find also in personal relationships, like I think a lot of people these days, some of our top videos on YouTube lately, I was talking to the team about them. They're all about confidence. And I thought that was really interesting because I feel like confidence usually goes away when you or a lack of confidence goes away when you work a lot.
Yeah.
Like the more you work, the more confidence I have. I rarely am like, we're not going to be able to do it. I'm like, we probably haven't prepped. We haven't done sufficient things in order to have this outcome.
Right.
And so I'm not confident we're going to hit it.
Yeah.
But it does seem like we have like a confidence crisis.
Yeah.
Do you see that with a lot of people saying, I do not feel confident in myself. I'm not going to be able to do it. I don't believe in myself. I have imposter syndrome.
Yeah. I feel like people definitely feel more scrutinized and judged these days. And I think a lot of that is just how online and permanent everything is. You know, I think when you and I were young, if you kind of made a fool out of yourself, people would forget about it within a week or two. Now it lives forever on the internet and people can it's just everybody has a phone in their pocket. So it's anything dumb you do or say can potentially last forever. So I just think people have become much more risk averse and they haven't built that muscle of taking risk. But the other thing too is I think, I've always said that confidence isn't about believing you're going to achieve success. It's a comfort with failure. It's knowing that you're going to be okay if it doesn't turn out okay. Like that's actually what makes you confident in a situation. It's like, I'm going to take a stab at this. And if it doesn't go all right, that's fine. I'm going to learn from it. Right. And I just think a lot of people have that backwards. So they focus on like the guaranteeing of success. And so they become a perfectionist and they try to control everything, which then just makes them more anxious and more stressed out. And they get into kind of a downward spiral.
That's a good point. I was really struggling to like nail what confidence is exactly the other day. We were literally just talking about it and whether that's inherent or not. But if confidence is really just the comfort with failure, then how do you get more comfortable with failure? Again,
by failing.
I hate this answer. I hate this for me. I hate this for everybody listening. Is this the
sorry,
only?
everybody.
Is there not a 3-step framework? God damn it, Mark.
Sorry, but
really, like, okay, so let's get granular then. Like, big failures, little failures, any failures, daily failures,
all the above. And I will say this. I would say probably little failures first. I think it's because big failures, if you're not used to failing and if you're not used to failing publicly, like it can overwhelm you and kind of wipe you out. But yeah, definitely you want to get lots of little failures in, lots of little embarrassments, lots of, coming back to the dating coaching thing, one of the first things I used to tell people is I would say, like, how much have you gotten rejected lately? And, most people would say not at all because they didn't ask anybody out. And I'm like, well, that's your first problem. Like, go get rejected 5 times and then we can talk about what went wrong, And people just don't think about it in those terms. They just think about it in terms of, give me the thing to say that is going to guarantee that this person likes me. And the world doesn't work that way.
Dude, it really doesn't. And it's almost like that in everything.
It is.
Like, it's every answer is actually just, do you want to go get somebody to date you that you like? Go eat shit at least 100 times to find one. Yeah. And it's like, and if you want to get rich, go talk to 100 customers that tell you no to get one. And if you want to buy a business, go look at 100 deals to find one. Like, every answer is basically quantity and more. Yeah. And if you don't pile on more pain and failure, you're never going to have the thing that you want. Yeah. Which is crazy. And what's kind of interesting about you too, like, you've done these experiments with people. So as opposed to a lot of people who talk about things online, you're like, all right, I have a theory. Yeah. And we're going to go test this theory live and see if the theory actually works and whether it breaks down. And you've done it, as far as I can see, with people who have lost weight, one way or another, people who were scared of failure. Yeah. Like, maybe you could talk about one of the times that you walked in a chicken costume down Venice Boulevard, which I remember, and why? Because you put yourself through the experiment first, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I've always believed very strongly, like I've never wanted to be the guy on stage, like, telling this is what you should do. These are the 5 things that are going to change your life. I've always liked the idea of like, I'm in the trend, I'm in the shit and the muck with everybody else. I go through this stuff too. So in the videos, I do the same. I basically took fans with various anxieties or personal issues and kind of ran them through a gauntlet of different challenges or having them face their fears and whatnot. But I made myself do it too. And it was a good exercise, right? It's like, one is just, I should be able to walk the walk of what I say. But it's also, I think it comes back to like building that, you can call it scar tissue or you can call it the muscle, but it's basically, it's like that accumulation of failures, embarrassments, etc. And it's funny because doing that series of videos, by the time we got towards the end, like I honestly reached a point where I'm like, I don't think there's anything at this point that could embarrass me or scare me.
Careful if you put it out there.
I know. It was funny actually. So we just shot one a few weeks ago, and it was funny. I basically hosted a dinner for a bunch of people in my audience, and worked on a bunch of stuff with them, and then took them outside. And we were on the beach in Malibu, and took them outside, and then had everybody walk on hot coals. And which is like a classic Tony Robbins thing. And it was really funny because the attendees like looked at me and they're like, "Oh, well, you do this all the time, right?" And I'm like, "No, I've never done this before."
You're like, "It might work, you might die."
Yeah, and they were all looking at me. They're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but we'll find out."
You okay?
Yeah, it was fun.
But I like that. I was supposed to go to Tony's show the other week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've never done it. It actually that gives me anxiety. We've got
the fire stuff or being at a
like
Tony Robbins
hugging
seminar.
Random people, jumping up and down, smiling.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm an opt out, and I say that with a lot of love to Tony, who's going to come on the pod. And he was like, "Come," and you know what his selling point was? Be in the front row. I was like, Tony, not a selling point. No. I want to be in the back. I'm unsure about this, But I couldn't end up doing it because I had some health stuff. But I do think that it would have probably been good for me. Because I hate that. I hate the idea of hugging strangers and jumping up and down. And
maybe It's funny, like a huge part of those seminars is that kind of like synthetic fun. And it's easy. I think it's one of those things where it's like easy for you and me, because I have the same feeling. Like I look at it and I'm like, really? Like, we're going to dance again? Like, what? Come on, man.
No public dancing.
Yeah. It's like, no, I don't want to give another back rub. Like, it's just.
Oh, God, you have to do back rubs?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm good, man. Like, I don't, but it's funny because I think it's ultimately we're not the target market. Like it's, if you think about somebody who's extremely depressed, extremely lonely, like hasn't gotten out much, has kind of lost touch with most of the people in their lives, an experience like that can be very powerful. But yeah, if you do have like a bunch of good relationships in your life, you're pretty happy. Like it is kind of just, it's synthetic fun.
Interesting. So you almost have had to stair step your way up the embarrassment ladder too.
Oh yeah.
You're like, now chicken costume is like, that's a Tuesday.
Oh yeah. I could put one on right now. It's like no problem. But it's like anything though, right? Like, I mean, it's you climb that ladder with money too, right? Like it's like the first time you have a 5-figure deal, you're sweating bullets. Now it's like, you probably don't even get out of bed for a 5-figure deal. So it's like anything in life is like that. You just, you get that progressive desensitization that happens over time.
Yeah, that's probably actually bad in a lot of ways, and why really rich people go crazy.
It can be.
They like can't find the new adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Because you have a line actually that I like, which is like, happiness comes from progress, therefore happiness requires struggle, which I think lends itself to this.
Yes.
Because what if you can't find something to struggle on anymore? What does that quote mean to you?
Well, it's paradoxical because the more successful you become, the harder it is to know what progress is or what progress is worth having. So, and this is why you see, so in my second book, I talk about this, that there's I believe it's called the Easterland paradox in psychology, which is essentially that you find that the poor the country or the poorer the neighborhood, the lower the suicide rate. And the more affluent the country and the more affluent the neighborhood, the higher the suicide rate. And I think it comes from the fact that when you don't have anything in life, like when you're struggling on a day-to-day basis, meaning is very simple. It's like, get to tomorrow. Get the rent paid, get some food on the table. Like there's no ambiguity of what you should be doing to be improving your life. If you're like kicking it in a Bel Air mansion, with like some crazy 9-figure exit or something, and you're 32 and you have nothing to do all day, like that is an existential crisis. Like nobody's going to shed a tear for you, but it's not obvious what progress is. It's not obvious what you should do next. In fact, the fact that you can do potentially an infinite number of things actually makes it even harder to figure out what progress looks like or what you should be doing next. And so you often see, so it's funny, like I don't know if it's a national network or if it's just like a California thing, but there's a network, it's called the Post-Exit Founders Group or network or whatever. And it's, and I've got some friends who are in it, and I've talked to them before and they're like, yeah, dude, it's like when we do our events and everybody gets behind closed doors, it's like half the people there are like in an existential crisis because they just had this massive check hit their bank account and they're not working anymore. And sure, you can like splurge on a boat and go to Greece or something, but like that gets old after a month or two. And then you're just sitting around being like, oh shit.
Yeah.
What next?
Especially if like entrepreneurship is a trauma response, which I think it is half the time. I'm like, what sane person would do this? That's not normal. And so if that's true, and so like half the reason you keep going is because you're kind of self-masochistic and you like the, struggle and figuring out what to do next. Yeah. If I only had the option of sipping Mai Tais all day and you got to look at yourself in the eye and nobody else, ooh, that could become problematic.
For sure. It's funny, like one of the most depressed I've ever been is after my first book blew up. And it was because basically everything I had been working towards the previous 10 years all happened and got accomplished at the same time. And so then I just kind of sat around being like, well, I guess I'll play some more video games because I don't know what else to do. And it was like a very bleak 6 months. It was very strange, which is weird because everybody's patting you on the back and saying, oh my God, you must be living your dream. And you're like, yeah, this is my dream, but I'm the same dude with the same problems and the same anxieties and the same bad habits. And except now I have nothing to look forward to. I have like no definition of progress in my life.
Buying a business or launching your own venture can feel impossible if you're stuck figuring out the website, logo, email marketing all at once. But here's the good news. GoDaddy Aero is here to help. So just a few prompts, it builds a professional website, a logo, an email, even social content, all tailored to your business. It's like having a whole launch team in your laptop. Instead of months of grinding, you can go from idea to launch-ready business in minutes. No more waiting, no more guessing, just a real online presence that you can grow with day one. Suddenly, the thing that was just a tiny idea in a notebook is online, polished, and ready to scale. So if you're ready to take your idea to life, head to godaddy.com/Codie Sanchez and try GoDaddy Aero today.
That book was so big, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Obviously, we talked about it in the beginning of this, in the intro, but it was so big. It is so big.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the most sold nonfiction copies or
like
books of all time. 20-something
million copies at this point.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Also an incredible documentary on Netflix. I remember when that came out.
Yeah,
great thumbnail too. Was that you? Weren't you in a floaty at a pool?
They put me in a pool. There's this like crazy surreal opening sequence that involves me sitting in a pool drinking out of a pineapple while like people die and emergencies happen around me. It's like this very dramatic sequence. It was like 45 degrees in New Zealand when they shot that. So I was freezing my ass off the entire time, but I got to have my little Hollywood moment.
It did not look like that. It looked lovely and happy.
So cold. There was there were a bunch of PAs with like mountains of towels on the side. So as soon as I got out of the pool, they just like draped all these towels over me. So I was so cold.
But what's cool about that book that I think is really resurfacing for people, boundaries are really big with the kids these days, not giving a fuck, having confidence. That book, again, is like, I feel like even having another resurgence moment. I'm sure there are many people out there right now thinking about what other people think more than those other people are ever actually thinking about them.
Oh, like all of us.
Right. Like you're talking about me. So the question is,
it's called being human.
The book's not that long, which I also love about it. But if you had to distill for somebody who hasn't read it yet, what do you do when you give too many fucks?
So the paradoxical thing, and this is laid out in chapter 1, is the whole idea of not giving a fuck. It's a bit of a misnomer. Like this idea that things are just going to roll off your back and nothing's going to faze you. There's a word for that in psychology. It's called a psychopath. So we don't want that. You do want to care about things. Obviously, you do want people in your life that you do care about their opinion, right? Like it should upset me if, I don't know, my parents are mad at me. So the question is, how much should we care? So generally people who feel like they give a fuck about way too many things or what way too many people think, it's not an issue about the caring, it's the extent of how much they care. So the point I make in the book is that it's not about not giving a fuck what other people think. It's about finding something that is more important than what other people think. Because if you don't have anything more important going on in your life than what other people think about you, then what other people think about you is going to dictate everything else. And that's just like a shitty place to be. It's nothing good's going to happen. But if you this comes back to the meaning and purpose thing. If you have something very meaningful, something you're giving yourself to, something you're willing to sacrifice for, something you care very, very deeply about, then suddenly it's okay if some people don't like you. It's okay if some people don't get it, if some people judge you or disapprove of you.
So what would you say to somebody that's like, I just want to stop being such a people pleaser?
Find the hills that you're willing to die on. Ask yourself, what are you willing to be disliked for? And for a people pleaser, that's going to be a very hard question to answer. They might not actually have anything that they can answer, and to which at that point, your job becomes to find something. Find something you're willing to be disliked for, and then go do it. Because that's your thing. That's the piece of meaning and purpose that's going to be more important than other people's opinions. And as long as you're driving towards that, then everything else will kind of fall into place.
What is sort of the right way to respond when somebody else is like coming at you in a boundary way, or when somebody else is trying to make you work outside of something that you feel comfortable with? How do you keep boundaries, but not look like a dick?
I think tactically speaking, it's always great to frame things like rules. So, for instance, if I was like, let's say your producer emailed me and was like, come in at whatever o'clock. And I was like, no, that's preposterous. I refuse. Like, then it creates this ugly situation, right? Whereas if I'm just like, hey man, I have this rule. I don't do interviews after 3 p.m. Sorry, maybe we can find another time. Like when you frame things as a rule, it's like, hey, this is just a rule I have in my life. I just don't do this thing. And it's just to take care of my own health and my own sanity or whatever. People respect it. And then if they don't, it makes it very easy to be like, oh, well, then fuck them. Like they're not respecting my rules, so this is just not going to work out. So I always encourage people, like, frame whatever boundaries you want to have, frame it as a rule. It's like, hey, I don't talk about this subject with people who aren't part of my family. Nothing personal, And then it's like, then things become very clear.
It's so good because it's shifting the no to you to like, oh no, it's not about you. It's about this thing other here that already exists. It's like you get to use a shadow influence without even having one.
Yeah.
And then you get to deflect in a respectful way whatever somebody else is trying to push on you. That's so good.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is that it also clarifies for you the caliber of the relationship you have, right? Like, it's, if the person doesn't respect your rule, then by extension, they're not respecting you. So it makes it very clear of like, okay, I have somebody in my life who doesn't respect me. What am I going to do about that? Whereas if you're kind of in this people pleasing mode and you're like, well, I don't want to upset them, so I'm going to like hint and like maybe like be a little passive aggressive, drag my feet, pretend like I forgot, then you just end up in this like murky gray area where it's like nobody's really happy with how the friendship's going or the relationship's going, but like you're kind of going through the motions, and like it doesn't end well.
Do you think that we are like over labeling ourselves, such as like these days I was like watching something online. It's like, I'm an avoidant. I'm a this. I'm a, I'm with a passive aggressive person. He's definitely a narcissist. Like what is going on with all these labels we're placing on ourselves? Are these real? Are they that black or white?
Yeah, they are real. They're not necessarily black and white. And I have mixed feelings about it. Like, I think it's a sword that cuts both ways. So I do think there is a bit of an over labeling that has been happening. So I'll make the bull case first for all this labeling. And I guess we could call this just kind of like therapy culture in general, So it's like all of the language that permeates TikTok and Instagram and YouTube these days, and people talking, about being neurodivergent and avoidant and attachment types and dealing with narcissists and all this stuff. Like there's all this like kind of clinical therapy language that has entered into the mainstream. So on the one hand, it represents just an awareness of like a lot of these dynamics and issues, right? Which I don't think that's a bad thing. Like if you go back a couple generations, like people just buried shit for decades and and it only come
like
out
adults, after shove it down.
Just keep shoving it down, and
don't deal with that,
and hope it doesn't come out after 9 or 10 drinks. So I do think it's good that these things are being talked about. The problem is that there's a very fine line between labeling a problem and adopting a label as an identity. So as soon as you adopt a label as an identity, like the way our minds work is whatever I've defined myself as part of my identity, I'm going to defend it, and I'm going to become emotionally attached to it. So if I decide that, let's say I'm ADHD, which I am diagnosed as ADHD, But if I decide to make that a core part of my identity, like it defines who I am and my relationships and how I like see the world and interact with the world, then I'm going to start imposing that on all of my experiences and my relationships. And then you get this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, which is that because I'm approaching every experience in my life as like, well, as an ADHD person, I can't really handle this. And as an ADHD person, you need to talk to me this way and not that way. You actually amplify how serious the condition is. Whereas if you just said like, okay, this is a thing I have and I'm just going to manage it and I'm not going to make it part of my identity, you can use that awareness to diminish how much it affects your life. So the problem I see is that adopting these labels as an identity is being rewarded online. And so it's the more it's rewarded, the more people like cling to them, which the worse they feel for having them.
Great point. I've also been diagnosed as ADHD from an online test I did once. And
very clinical.
Yes, it was super. But the best part about the test was at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe it when somebody sent it to me. But the end, there was a literal link to talk to psychologist. I guess it would have been a psychiatrist because they could prescribe and consider some sort of option, which I believe was some variant of Adderall that I hadn't heard of before. So like, you may need to get on a person with this one and some of your treatment options. So it was like kind of an ad.
Yeah.
And I thought, for the love of all that's holy, in a 15 question interview online, you're going to diagnose me as X thing and give me a pill? Seems flawed.
Yes.
You know?
There's a whole overdiagnosis issue. I mean, and that's just across the board. Anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD, like there's probably all of those are being overdiagnosed to a certain extent. I mean, the problem is just, without getting down too much of a tangent, there's always been kind of the pharmaceutical incentive, right, to diagnose people. And I think for many, many decades, the population was underdiagnosed. So like that incentive was aligned with the public good. But I think probably in the last 10 years, 15 years, we're getting to a place where there's an overdiagnosis, and now that incentive is an issue. And then on top of that, you have kind of the social incentives of, well, if I start making TikToks talking about my ADHD, then I'm going to get a following, and all these other ADHD people are going to follow me. Or if I talk about my anxiety disorder or my panic attacks, like all these other people are going to follow me. And then that becomes just a core part of who I am, which psychologically subtly it promotes a greater propensity for anxiety attacks and panic attacks, right? So like self-definition, I probably should have said this earlier, like self-definition has a huge impact on our mental well-being, right? Like there's so much research about this on both good and bad labels. So like, for instance, if you set out and start a new challenge, say it's a business challenge, or it could be anything. It could be running a mile or whatever. Simply deciding, like simply believing that you are capable of doing it, that you will be successful at it, like increases your odds of success substantially. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy aspect of life, right? Like if I tell myself that my new business venture is going to fail, it makes it more likely it's going to fail, because it's going to prime my brain to start looking for all the ways it could screw up. And then when it does screw up, I'm going to be like, see, I always knew it was going to screw up. So it's like, this is why you often see like founders and entrepreneurs are delusionally optimistic and overestimate themselves consistently, because it's actually very useful in a certain context. You see this with the athletes. You generally see this with like a wide range of highly successful people. The opposite of that is true as well. So if you believe, I can't do this because I'm an anxious person, I can't do this because it's going to be too stressful, I'm going to have panic attacks, you make it more likely that you're going to succumb to stress and panic attacks. That's not to say that it's the only thing causing your stress and panic. Like people do legitimately have anxiety disorders and panic disorders and all sorts of things. But the language you use with yourself can move the needle in terms of the likelihood of it holding you back or not. And so the other concerning part of therapy culture is that I think it is subtly reinforcing people to place limitations on themselves. To say, instead of saying, I have ADHD, and well, actually there's a bunch of contexts and situations that ADHD can actually be an asset. It's encouraging people to say, I have ADHD, so I'm just never going to be like a normal person. And there's all these things I can't do. And there's a bunch of things I'm probably going to fail at. And then it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy.
If you're listening, like how do you integrate this into your life? Like what should you do instead of labeling yourself as negative things? How do you change and prime your brain so that you can label yourself a winner?
It's a great question. I also think there's potentially issues with labeling yourself a winner. So I'm of the Buddhist school of like, don't label yourself anything. You don't know who the fuck you are. Because when you don't have a label, then your potential is infinite, right? Like you could potentially become anything or anybody you want. So I recommend people shy away from labels as much as possible. And if you do adopt one, like be very conscious of why you're adopting it and like what the consequences of adopting that label are. I'll use kind of a superficial example, or it's not really superficial. It might sound superficial, but it was actually very profound for me. So I started, as we talked about earlier, I started blogging 2007. My first business was dating and relationship coaching. And that actually did pretty well. And I was like happy and like everything was going great. And I decided to write a book to kind of promote my online coaching business. That book eventually became Subtle Art. Subtle Art went on and sold a bazillion copies. And sure enough, next thing I know, all these big book deals are showing up. All these publishers want to work with me. All these like incredible opportunities are knocking on my door. I got to do a book with Will Smith, and it was super exciting. For the next 5 years, I was working just as hard as I had always worked, but it was feeling like, I guess I would say like, it started to feel like a grind. It started to feel like, obviously it wasn't a day job, but like the feeling that people get when you're just doing something for a paycheck, like it started to feel like that towards the end. And it really started to like grind me down, and I got pretty burnt out. And I took a sabbatical in 2022. And my big realization on the sabbatical was like, I thought I was an author. Like all of this shit, all the burnout and the stress and like long miserable hours. The problem was I thought I was an author. I'm an entrepreneur. This is like, I was creating a media and coaching business. I lost track of that because people showed up and started offering me like more money than I'd ever seen in my life to play as an author. And so I told myself, I'm an author. I do author things now. And I started living an author life. And it was like, I don't know, it was like walking around in clothes that are the wrong size. Like it's just very uncomfortable and eventually like starts to wear you down. And so on my sabbatical, I was like, I completely forgot. Like the way I got here is because I'm an entrepreneur. I should go back to being an entrepreneur and building online media and coaching businesses. And that's what I did. And I'm like happy as a pig in shit. So I haven't written a book in 5 years. So it's a simple shift in definition. And I guess my story, like the lesson from that is that it's very easy to unconsciously change how you see yourself based on the financial opportunities that show up. It's very tempting to do that. And I did that, and it like I ended up paying the consequences. So yeah, I'm back to being an entrepreneur, and I'm very happy.
Author.
Yes. Sometimes author.
Well, you are really good at, which is, I think, one of the reasons why so many people follow you online, but why I like talking to you. You're really self-reflective. Like almost every time we've talked, you've been like, I'm thinking about this. I tried this. I didn't like it. Like it didn't sit well with me. And so I thought about it and I changed it. And I think a lot of us in life, we just keep going. We're like, don't pay attention, keep going. And that's why burnout comes. There's no self-reflection. There's no review. But like, you're quite good, I think, at taking a step back and going, okay, let me think about this. Yeah. And even a reframe like I did there, you would have been very tempting for you to go like, oh, well, here's how you should label yourself.
Yes.
Like you accept somebody else's frame. That's actually, it's really hard to not do, especially in an interview.
Yeah.
To go instead, you said dumb question, this is what you should do instead, right? So for somebody listening, what is the way that you should self-reflect to even figure out, oh, I'm unhappy because I've labeled myself improperly?
Yeah. So a drum that I will bang on until my death. I keep pushing this message into kind of the productivity space, and I feel like nobody wants to hear it. But I think it's extremely important. So for people who care right now or in a phase of their life that they care very deeply about success, productivity, achievement, all those things, you have to view your emotions as another system to be managed. Most people just, like you said, push the emotions, they compartmentalize. They're like, we're not going to think about that now. I've got meetings to go to. And you can do that for a while. You can do that for a year, maybe a couple of years, but like at some point it's going to come back and it's really going to bite you in the ass. And I think that the thing that doesn't get talked about enough is that your emotions are another system to be managed. And as soon as you feel yourself getting off track emotionally of like not enjoying what you're doing, not being excited about the people you're working with, not getting along with your team, like these are all signals of like something's off. And sure, maybe it's not showing up on the balance sheet and it's not showing up in the P&L, but like it matters, because if you're miserable, like that's fucking terrible ROI long term. like you don't want to be stuck in a business. You don't want to build your own prison, essentially. So the first thing I would say for people who like, really care about that stuff is like to just acknowledge that this matters, that it does affect everything. And the second thing, I think once you realize that it is an important facet of everything that you're doing, it is another system to be managed, then you can start looking at it and thinking about it like you look at and think about other systems in your business or your career of like, okay, where's the bottleneck? Where's the poor ROI? Like where's the place or the person that I'm putting tons of energy into and I feel like I'm getting very little out? Like it's the exact same principles that you're applying in all these other areas of your life. You can look at your emotional life in the exact same way. In terms of tactically, I think journaling is like by far probably the easiest lift, like the highest leverage activity for people who haven't thought about this stuff a whole lot. Like just, get yourself like a empty notebook and start asking yourself a lot of these questions and really starting with like the basics. Like, what do I feel about this? How am I feeling in this moment? How am I feeling today? How am I feeling about what I'm working on? How am I feeling about the people around me? And then once you've identified those feelings, like ask yourself why. Why do I feel this way? Why does it feel so draining when I'm working on this part of my business or on this part of my career? What is it about it? And then really like explore that, give yourself the freedom to write pretty liberally until you find something.
That's really good. So no screaming manifestations in the mirror. And journal just kind of briefly about the things that we feel and ask why. That seems reasonable for like, internet people.
It's funny too. Like it's such a basic thing. I used to call this the why game. And it's, so you just take something you're struggling with and say like, how do you feel about that? Or like, why are you struggling with it? Take that reason. And then you take that reason and you say, okay, why is that reason a problem? And then you get another reason and you say, okay, why is that reason a problem? And it's just like layers of an onion, and you just keep going and going and going. And usually you'll get to a point where it gets circular. And like that circularity is usually like, okay, that's actually the real problem. That's the thing that you actually have to focus on, not this surface layer shit that, you've been thinking about.
That's so good. What, on the same vein, you were talking originally about, hey, like, I think people get this wrong and they're not listening to this, but I'll scream it from the rooftops. What else do you think that young people today just have so wrong? Yeah.
Well, we've definitely hit two of them. Like the failure piece that feels very particular to Gen Z, I think. It's just I'm alarmed by the amount of risk aversion I think the other thing that people, we talked about boundaries a little bit earlier. I do feel like there's maybe an overcorrection that's happening there. Again, it's great that people are becoming aware of boundaries and speaking up for themselves and being willing to say no. But I think, again, coming back, like there's so much shitty advice on social media that is just like, if they don't respect you, then they can get the fuck out of your life. And it's like, well, no, actually, some people you don't want to do that with, right? Like some people you maybe want to stick it out and try to work with them or put some time into it. I do. There's some alarming. We did a podcast last year on kind of some alarming statistics on people cutting family members out of their lives.
What's happening?
I forget the exact numbers because it's been a while, but it was an episode we did like probably like early 25. And it's shocking. It's way more people than you think. It's something like 25% of Gen Z is like willingly chosen not to speak to at least one parent. A lot of siblings being cut off, a lot of stuff. And again, I think it's like well-intentioned therapy culture type stuff of like, well, my mom is toxic or my brother never respects my boundaries or whatever. And I get where it's coming from, but I also think that I feel like cutting family members out of your life is a move of last resort. Like there's a lot of intermediary steps you can go.
Doesn't need to be step one.
You can manage exposure to people. You can manage set boundaries around which topics you'll talk with, how long you'll spend with them, what conversations you'll indulge, which ones you won't. There's just a lot of managing that you can do in between.
No, it's so true. I mean, I always go back to the quote. It's like an African proverb about you can either pave the world in leather or you can wear leather shoes. And I think I totally agree with you. Sometimes that person that's problematic is there to teach you something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just avoid everybody that you don't like, or everybody that is even toxic, or everybody that is pushing boundaries, then that means you don't get better at holding them.
Yes.
You don't get better at keeping things out of your perimeter that are toxic because you're so hard to push through.
Yeah.
If you don't allow these people in to teach you lessons in some way, you never get better.
Yeah.
Because you expect the whole world to be paved as opposed to wearing the shoes. And so I think, it's cool because what you're building right now that I want to talk about is a pushback to a thing that scares the hell out of me.
Okay.
Which is, I have like multiple girlfriends who have turned ChatGPT and named it into their therapist.
Okay.
And the problem, as my friend Arthur Book said better than I did, and I'm not going to say it as eloquent, is that he says the problem with ChatGPT is it is a malignant narcissist in that it is just trained to read back to you the things that it thinks that you want to hear.
Yes.
And to agree with you by and large.
Mm-hmm.
And it has no emotion.
Yes.
It is psychopathic in its tendencies. And so what concerns me with some of my friends is these are like amazing people who will tell me that they'll have an argument with a man that they're dating and then go feed their side into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will confirm every single thing that they're doing.
Of course.
And I love you, friends, but some of you guys are fucking psychos too. We can get crazy in relationships, me included.
Of course.
And I'm wrong all the time. And so if I only feed my side in and then ChatGPT is always telling me I'm right, that seems bad.
Yes.
And I don't know, you're the expert in this. What is happening? Is that bad? Should people be using ChatGPT as a therapist? What is your thought? And then I want to talk to you about your counterpoint to it.
Deeply concerned as well. I started noticing in my life, same thing. A bunch of friends, family members started using ChatGPT as a therapist. This is maybe a year and a half ago, I went and started experimenting with it, kind of running some life problems through it, seeing how it responded. And I'll say this, it's very uneven. There's some things that it's much better at than, say, your average therapist, and then some things it's much worse at. So the thing you pointed out is what it's much worse at. It just validates. It doesn't think critically. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't, it wants you to feel happy. It kisses your ass way too much. The thing that it's good at is it is, in its data set, is the entire wealth of knowledge, the entire field of psychology, essentially. every research paper is in there. Every finding is in there. Every branch of the topic is in there. All like I think there's over 3,000 hours worth of therapy transcripts like in the foundational model. So if you get it away from, if you approach it with any problem that's not about validating your feelings, like if you actually ask it for some sort of tangible feedback or advice on a more specific problem, it will actually be extremely well informed on the research in that area and will generally give you some good direction and good advice. The problem is that your average layperson has no idea what the difference between those two things is. And so, yeah, that becomes very problematic for sure.
Yeah. And I was reading the other day that like 60% of LLMs are off of Reddit, which is, I think, where dreams go to die. So that like those people being my therapist is my personal nightmare. That would be horrific.
Yes.
But like, I guess my point here is you're building something that's a counterpoint to this.
Yes.
Which is, don't just go to, like, if you actually want to change your life or fix your life, you don't just want to be told you're right. And that's like, my husband and I always say that to each other. We say, do you want to win or do you want to be right?
Right.
And often winning doesn't mean me personally winning. It might mean our relationship winning.
Yes.
You know, do I want our relationship to be good or do I want to say, you are wrong, I am right, tell it back to me.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And if that's what you want, then I guess go to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But if not, there's not a lot of other places to go to where somebody will kind of give you a little tough love.
Yeah.
And so you came up with something that I think is really clever.
Yeah. So I felt very strongly. So I felt this tension. I'm like, it's definitely not meant for this purpose, but the potential is there. Like it is trained on so much wealth of psychological knowledge and data. And coincidentally, it was funny. I was actually at a poker game. I sat next to a guy and started talking to him, and his name was Raj, and he founded a AI business. Have you ever checked in a hotel and you get like a text message and it's like an AI concierge? You can say like, oh, I want towels or whatever. So he created that.
He's probably doing okay.
Yeah. He had like a very big exit and took a year off and had just finished his sabbatical, like when he went to that poker game. So I started talking to him. He's like, yeah, I'm just wrapping up a sabbatical. I'm trying to figure out what's next. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, what are you thinking about? And he said, well, I really want to do something in AI mental health. And I was like, no shit. Been thinking about this too. And turns out he had identified the exact same problem. He's like, there's so much potential here, but there's no LLM that has been optimized for it. There's nothing that's been trained for it. There's nothing that's like been specifically created for this purpose. So he and I became co-founders, and we've been working together since February. And as of this week, we were in full V1 launch of our app called Purpose. And the goal of it is to essentially be that counterpoint to ChatGPT. Instead of just trying to make you feel better all the time, the goal is to actually make you better, right? Tell you the hard things that you need to hear, point out your blind spots to you, challenge you on your bullshit, say like, are you really sure about that? Or like, maybe like your shit stinks too. And it's been great. Like it's because here's the funny thing that we've actually noticed with a lot of our early users as well, is that like people are way more honest with an AI than they are with a therapist. Like if I don't know about you, but like my experience in therapy, like it often takes like 4, 5, 6 sessions just to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'll actually say this thing to her, right?
Of course. And you want them to like you more than your partner. I mean, that's like the natural inclination. You're like, he's the, the thing is.
It's all about your perspective.
Right, 100%.
But it's, when it's an AI, it's just like, well, fuck it, whatever. This is what I'm thinking. This is who I'm kind of screwed up, but like, here it is, like it never judges you. It's like, you never have to worry about it. It's going to like hold something against you, or it's like secretly thinking something about you. So generally speaking, we see people are much more forthcoming with it. And you actually get to that clarity extremely quickly. Like sometimes in a matter of minutes. It's like pretty crazy.
Is there like a Mark Manson button, or Mark Manson? Is there a button where we can get your voice to talk back to us?
Not yet. Maybe. That might be coming.
Or is it really nice still?
It is nice.
Does it cuss?
No.
I have a lot of user feedback.
Okay.
I feel like this is a miss. I wanted to be able to talk shit to me from the author of The Subtle Art of Giving a Fuck back.
We actually talked about this.
Okay.
And one of the things I told my co-founders, I was like, look, like I'm under no illusions that I'm the right person for everybody. Right. So I actually think if we put my personality on it, we would be limiting it. It would help fewer people. So it is not limited to me, but maybe we will get a Mark Manson button. Just a little button.
Yeah,
just be like, hey, fuck face.
Yeah, exactly.
Pull your head out.
Also, talk about viral feedback loops.
Yes.
Can you imagine those screenshots?
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah. Come
All
on. All right. Let me on the cap table. I've got feedback. But I really like the idea, and I really commend my husband's the smarty on AI. It's not me. Mm-hmm. But I go just this weekend. I was with last weekend, whenever ASAL was. And I was with all these guys who, like the guy who started Apptronic, the robot company, and well, I won't say anyway, like just a bunch of really big names in robotics and AI. And I had the funniest conversation. It wasn't from the CEO of Apptronic, but and the conversation kind of went like this. I was like, don't you think we should worry like a little bit about what we're building with AI? Because seems like happiness gone down, sex gone down, marriage gone down. Like social media has, like, by and large, us gluing our faces to the phones, by and large, incredible for productivity and like GDP growth.
Yeah.
Not so great for just being happy, like as humans, it seems like, or even procreating.
Yeah.
Like the data is kind of hard to refute, I think, on that. So if that's true, I'm like, maybe, if they like neurochip ads into our brains, it would be not great. And so anyway, that seemed like reasonable to me. And as I was talking to this guy, who's a really nice guy that I like, he was like, well, I'm a tech optimist. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, like I'm an optimist too, but you could be cautiously optimistic, which also seems rational. And he's like, no, we'll just like figure it out. I go, well, we haven't exactly figured it out. So shouldn't we have these conversations and say, what are we building? Is this really a good idea? And how could we try to take all the knowledge we have of human psychology for millennia and realize that if this is an extension of human psychology, it's probably good to put some guardrails on it if at all humanly possible.
For sure.
So like, I commend that you're doing it, because his response was hysterical. It was like maximum mansplain. He goes, listen, come on Monday, I'll explain AI to you. I was like, get the fuck out. I was like, that's what I was like. I was like, I want to have my big dick energy. I'm like, I'm going to open my legs wider than you,
buddy.
Yeah. But I know, isn't that funny? I mean, and I'm not pretending I know very much about AI, but we've invested in a slew of companies, and even the best founders are concerned.
Oh, we spend like a ridiculous amount of time. The two big things we spend most of our development time on is privacy and guardrails, because it is such early days, and we are still learning so much about what is an appropriate use of this technology and what's not. And yeah, it's hard. There's some scary shit. So like we're constantly testing it. Like it's very, very high on our priority list. The one thing I will say to what you just said is, and this actually like relieved me. It's going to sound a little bit funny when I explain. When I started this company, I was very like, basically Raj is the engineer, the builder, built the team, built all the development team and everything. And then I was kind of the product guy. So I had a rough idea of like how this thing should talk, what it should sound like, what good tough love advice is, and what is just kissing your ass. And so I spent a lot of time working with the LLM directly, like on the eval system, the training data, all the system prompts, like trying to squeeze out of it, like what should come out of it. And I will say, after working very, very closely directly with an LLM for over a year now, my estimation of what they're capable of has dropped considerably. Like they're like brilliant idiots. Like they will do multivariate calculus while doing a backflip and like spinning two plates on their fingers, but then like their shoes will be on wrong. Like it's there's like so many situations like that there've been so many times where I've just been trying to get it to do like such a basic thing, and it'll take an entire afternoon. And I'm like, okay, there's no way this thing's taking over the world. Like it just like the fact that it can't even give me this like one text response when I specifically asked for it, it's like, okay, we're probably going to be okay for a while. So I do think there's a little bit of moral panic going on around it. I don't think they're quite as capable as most. I mean, I don't know how much you guys have been using AI in your business, but it's like a year ago, I was like so on the train of like, everybody on my team, you got to get good at AI right now. This is going to be part of every workflow. And 6 months later, we're like, oh, half of it is just trash. And
I do think garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. And it's actually very, very hard to, you have to be extremely skilled to get it to do what you want extremely well. And oftentimes the amount of effort it takes to get it to do something you want extremely well, you might as well just do it yourself. So
yeah, I'm still there sometimes too.
Yeah.
But we hired a whole AI specialist team. So it's actually so fun to work with them because they're also smarter than me at prompting. And because with AI too, you have to know, I mean, to go to your part about beautiful idiots or brilliant idiots, there is the plate spinner that is the best plate spinner of all time.
Yes.
But that you have to match with the back flipper sometimes. And you're like, oh, okay, the two of you together do some magic, but independently, Jesus.
Yeah.
There's like one other place I want to go with you today. Totally unrelated to AI, hard pivot, but you did start in dating, and I've always like respected the conversations we've had about you and your wife.
Yeah.
And how you choose partners. So I want to read you a couple quotes and get your feedback. You said, choosing a romantic partner isn't just about romance. You're also choosing a confidant, counselor, career advisor, therapist, investor, teacher, travel buddy, roommate, and business partner. Choose wisely. And the question I think is, does that still hold true for you? That was from quite a few years ago. And how exactly does one find this type of partner?
It's funny because when I posted that, I got a bunch of blowback of people like, oh, you shouldn't hold people to such high expectations. And I think like what gets missed is that it's not that you should go looking for all those things. It's when you choose to marry somebody, that's what you're getting. Whether you want it or not, that person, your spouse becomes that, all of those things for you. So you have to vet them beyond just how's the romance or how spicy is the sex. Like you have to think through like a lot of different personality traits. And I think it's absolutely true. I personally think marrying well is like the single highest leverage decision of your entire life. And also not marrying well is also a very high leverage decision. Like it is just the force multiplier on all of your outcomes across life. And it's not just your career outcomes, it's your happiness outcomes, it's your health outcomes, it's all sorts of things, your social life. A good spouse makes everything better, and a bad spouse will make everything worse.
It's so true. I totally agree. And I get shit about it on the internet too. And you know what else is scary? I'm always scared to give advice because I'm like, I don't know, check back in 40 years, see how we're doing. Like this is like, I'm kind of new at this. It's only been 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
Like let's chill, but we're doing good right now.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for a young person that is looking for what you have, which is somebody that is all of those things?
I think the biggest thing to look for is character. Again, yes, you want the romance, you want the sparks to fly, you want to be swept off your feet and all, like we all want that. It's great. Don't get me wrong. But you have to look a level deeper. You have to look at their character, their integrity. How good of a decision maker are they? Are they dependable? Are they trustworthy? Do they share your values? How's their relationship with their family? Like all these things matter. And obviously nobody's perfect. Like nobody's going to check every single box, but ideally you want to find somebody who checks most of them, and the ones they don't check, like you can work with it,
Totally. Do you have like a couple questions you ask? Like I know we're both like we're a little baked now, but but
we're boomers.
Basically, fuck, shut up, Mark. But like, if you were given young you advice, the team actually asked me this the other day. I was like, I was having an existential crisis trying to answer it. But like, what if I only had 3 or 5 questions to sort of start sussing out, is this potentially my person or not.
Mm-hmm.
What are those?
Well, I will tell you, my favorite first date question that I recommend everybody ask is, ask the person you're on a date with, what did you learn from your last relationship? And the red flag is if the person starts going off about how horrible their ex was and how shitty they were. And, oh my God, I can't believe I dated them for so long. Like that person, run far away, get as far away as you can. What you're looking for is somebody who says, you know, it was a complicated relationship. It was good for a while. Then things went bad. Here's why they went bad. Here was my part in it. This was their part in it. Somebody who has perspective and an understanding of like what went wrong and who also has clearly like done some work since then to make sure that it doesn't go wrong again. I also love the question too, because if you ask it and the person kind of freaks out and gets really uncomfortable, that's also a signal, right? It's a signal that this is not a person who is comfortable opening up relatively quickly, who like doesn't want to go there.
You know what's crazy is that's the same thing for interviewing too. I always say if like the person you are going to hire, if you ask them like, tell me what happened in your last job, like why did you leave? Why did you choose to move on? If they start going negative, the company was terrible, the boss was awful, everything was ever. I have never once hired one of those people and had it work out. Not once. Every single time I wished I didn't hire them. Because I think the way that you treat the last person, the highest indication will be that you will be treated the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's such a good one. Okay, last one for you. You've also tweeted, the person you marry is the person you fight with. The house you buy is the house you repair. The dream job you take is the job you stress over. Everything comes with an inherent sacrifice. Whatever makes us feel good will also inevitably make us feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
You can't escape the bullshit. you can't escape it. It's no matter where you go, there's going to be some bullshit. So you just need to make sure that it's the bullshit you like having. It's the problems you are grateful that you have in your life. Again, I think people, they think about the benefits and the successes that they want. That's actually a very easy and uninteresting question. Everybody generally wants money. Everybody wants a great partner. Everybody wants to be liked and popular and, you know, all these things. The question is like, what pain do you want? Like, what are you willing to give up? What struggles are you actually kind of okay having? Like, what challenges do you seem to do better with than most people? Like that's actually where you get into who somebody is and like what makes you unique as an individual and what is ultimately going to serve you best as you move through life.
That's so good. I always say with goals, like, don't tell me what you want, tell me what you're willing to sacrifice to get them. But I've never actually asked. I've like proselytized on the internet about that, but I don't ever think I've actually asked somebody. Like, have you asked your wife or your friends or people you meet with those questions?
Like, what are you willing to give up?
Yeah. Like, what is the pain that you want? Like, what would be the way that you would even ask those questions to somebody? Because it's kind of hot. I need to go around and, you know, you can take that question multiple ways, but like, I like it.
Yeah. It's when I give talks, I say like everybody is secretly a masochist about something. The question is just like, what do you want to spank you and call you daddy? By the way, this goes over great at like corporate conferences.
Do you say that?
You can imagine I get invited back all the time.
Google's like, pull him.
You and I probably have the most polar opposite corporate speaking experiences.
No, I tell all their employees to leave. And then you tell them who wants to spank them.
Yeah,
so you know what? I'll start bringing you along. Let's do a road show.
Yeah, we'd just be the anti-corporate speakers.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to frame it in those terms. It's a hard question. Like I think nobody asks themselves. Nobody's asked it very often. It's like, what do you actually kind of secretly like? Like, what problem do you secretly like having? It's like a very interesting question that most of us don't think about. And, but yeah, I think the answer is extremely important.
What do you like?
The problem I secretly enjoy having, I mean, I'm a workaholic. like I like the grind. I like climbing the ladder. Like, it's just fun. It's like, I told my dad once, you know, when I came back and I started scaling content and doing video and stuff online and launching a podcast and everything, my dad kind of pulled me aside and he's like, you know, why are you doing this? He's like, financially, you're pretty set. And I told him, I was like, Dad, it's like I found the best video game and there's always another level. Like, you never beat it. And he got it. He was like, okay, that's cool. That's a good reason to do it.
Oh, that's such a good place to end. Mark, this was incredible. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I could make a pretty easy legal argument with the divorce rate about 53% that it is definitely negligent, possibly reckless to get married. How many people stay together miserable? 73% of them. Like, that's insane. If I said there's a 73% chance we walk out of here today, you're getting hit in the head with a bowling ball. Like, you would never, willy-nilly go for it.
James Sexton is one of the best divorce attorneys in the world. He has the keys to why people stay married, why people stay happy, and what will 100% lead to you getting divorced, whether you want it or not. This episode is going to shock you, and it is going to teach you the things that they should have taught us before we said, I do. You said affairs almost never start with sex. What do they actually start with?
I think they start the way relationships start, which is you're interested and you're interested. I've represented the cheated on, and I've represented the cheater. The two biggest problems are we don't know what we want, and we don't know how to express it to another person. But when's the last time that you said to your partner, what are some things I do that make you feel loved? There's something to be said for kind words and because I don't know which comes first, but I'll tell you right now, you do one, you'll probably get the other more often.
What are the first signs that a marriage is going sideways and it's going to end in your office?
What I would say are the red flags that a relationship is not likely to continue successfully.
I don't know if these numbers are right, but if they are, this is insane. It says you've handled 2,000 plus divorces. Is that right?
Yeah, easily. It's 25 years, almost 26 now.
Wow. You get hundreds of millions of views on divorce. Your work also, interestingly to me, goes way beyond divorce. It's about like almost the wake-up calls people need to hear before they get divorced. So given all you've seen and all this breakup, is marriage still a good idea?
I think so. I tell people marriage is like the lottery. You're probably not going to win. But if you win, what you win is so good that, like, why not buy a ticket? Like, I think, and the difference is that lottery, like, you can't really do much to increase your chances of winning the lottery. It's a game of chance. But marriage, there's a lot you could do to make it work. And when you meet the overwhelming majority of people are bad at marriage. Like, marriage, you could make an argument, and this is why lawyers don't get invited to parties very often. Like, you could make an argument that marriage is negligent. Like, negligence is defined as any activity where you fail to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk of serious harm. Okay, that's the dictionary definition of negligence. Recklessness is a conscious disregard for a substantial, unjustifiable risk of harm. So I could make a pretty easy legal argument with the divorce rate about 53% that it is definitely negligent, possibly reckless to get married. And keep in mind, that's 53% end in divorce. How many people stay together miserable for the kids, for religious reasons, they don't want to give away half their shit, whatever it might be? Another 10%, I'm being nice, maybe 20. Yeah. Now you got a technology fails like 73% of it. Like, that's insane. Like, that's insane. If I said there's a 73% chance we walk out of here today, you're getting hit in the head with a bowling ball, you would stay in, or you'd wear a helmet at a minimum, right? Like, you would never just, willy-nilly go for it. But yet, we're actually not only super into marriage still as a culture, there's a presumption you should do it.
Yeah.
Like, if someone, one of your friends came to you and said, I'm getting married, and you said, really, why? Like, that would be the most indelicate, unpleasant question, right? But realistically, it's a fairly, we're really happy, we want to get the government involved. Like, that's a very odd thing for a person to say, but you're not allowed to even question it because sort of the wedding industrial complex and, there's just this theory, like it's just a tradition now. And I've said before that, to some degree, tradition is the wisdom of the people who were here before us. And to some degree, tradition is peer pressure exerted by dead people. And I think that, when you say like, well, why are you getting married? Well, because you're supposed to. Well, why? Well, my parents were married. My grandparents were married. Okay, but like your grandmother didn't have the sum total of all human wisdom in a digital device in her hand. Like the world she lived in was very different. So why would a technology that worked for her necessarily make sense for you? So, marriage is just shockingly challenging at a minimum. I still think it's a good idea because the other statistic I find equally, if not more interesting, is that 86% of people remarry within 5 years of their divorce.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And I've watched so many people do it and do it quite successfully. Sometimes because I think that they bring, I think second marriage energy is a different thing. I think it's like, okay, I've figured out what I don't want. And I've seen and made some mistakes. And now I know what not to do, hopefully. And failure is a phenomenal teacher in that regard. And I think that people who have been through it, they kind of go, okay, like I'm not quite as afraid anymore because I've had this happen. It's like when you've had a failed business, it's unfortunate. But it's also, there's a freedom of like, okay, I failed and I'm still alive.
Didn't die.
Like I'm still here. I didn't die. So you know what? Let me ante up again. Let's do this. And let me take the lessons and do something with it. So I think that marriage is still something that's incredibly important to us as a species. And I think there has to be some greater reason for that,
Yeah. What about, can you tell after all of these divorces and being around all of these people who are unhappily married, if you look at a couple, can you tell if they are moving towards divorce or not? And if so, how, why, what are the signs?
I've been told I have good, we don't know what to call it yet, like I have good gaydar because I live in Chelsea and I can kind of be like, oh, maybe he is. But I don't know what the divorce equivalent of gaydar would be, where I can just sort of like smell I used to be very good at it on watching the Real Housewives shows on Bravo. I would be like, oh, they're done. Oh, yeah, they're on their way out. And some of their divorces I've actually done. I've represented a couple of them. That's public knowledge. But yeah, I mean, I think that I can, when I spend time with a couple, I definitely have a radar for the habits, the ways they interact with each other, and a sensitivity to it. I think we actually all do probably, but I think that my sensitivity to it is much higher because I spend so much time with people who are in that level of conflict to the point where it's so irretractable that now they're getting divorced. Like a couples counselor probably would spend time with people that are in marital challenge but might find their way to navigate out of it. I am the look, it's dead and I'm here to bury it person. So.
And what do they typically look like? Like, what are the first signs that a marriage is going sideways and it's going to end in your office?
Yeah. My mom used to say to me that it's hard to spot intelligence, but you can spot stupid a mile away. And so maybe intelligence is like an absence of stupid, right? So I think a lot of what I would say are the red flags that a relationship is not likely to continue successfully are an absence of things rather than a presence, right? Yeah. So like one of the things that's present in almost all the happy couples I know is this sense of like cheering for each other. This sense of like, you're interested, you're interesting, and I'm cheering for you. When you have that, it's a superpower of sorts. And the absence of it or the opposite of it, we've all been to the dinner party where like whatever he says, she's rolling her eyes at. And whatever she says, he's like not even really listening. And he's kind of like, wait, what? Like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it's just a vibe. It's a feeling. It's that sense of like
cool.
Yeah. Well, the zeitgeist has told people it's cool. Yeah. Like I don't know what that's about, but like, this is something that as a man and a woman, we probably experience a little differently. But like you go out with a group of men and if a guy is like, dude, my wife's like the coolest, man. Like it's sort of like, well, what is with this guy? Whereas if the guy is like, my wife's like the most loathsome harpy ever to castrate a man, they're like, yeah, I know, man. That's how they are. And women, it's the same thing. Like if you say like, oh, my husband's just so great, it's kind of, maybe it's a little more acceptable. But if you do the like, man, they're just so stupid. It's like, amen, sister, and we've really been taught to this, like have this battle, and see it that way. And look, for whatever reason, the battle of the sexes and the sort of girls versus boys thing, I get there's a bonding element to that or whatever. But like if you're saying there are 8 billion people in the world and you're the one, like I want you to hold my hand and let's figure this thing out. Let's walk together. Let's see each other's blind spots. Let's like try to just cheer for each other, help each other. Like to me, the goal of marriage should be that at the end of your life, you could say, this person helped me be the most authentic version of myself. And I helped them do the same thing. Like, what could be more worthy of a pursuit than that? Like, what could be a greater asset to have than that? But for most people, I don't know that that's the goal. There's this sense of like, yeah, like this is my person. Like I picked them. I don't know if I'd pick them again if I had it to do over again. Like, that's when you feel that around people, that rolling of the eyes. But one of the things I think is really fun to do is when you're out, with a group of couples or whatever, and someone's got that vibe of like, oh, you can tell they had a fight in the car on the way there, or they have that sort of like rolling their eyes at each other. If you go, so how'd you guys meet? Yeah. Tell me about how you met. There's a softening that happens that is fascinating to me because people kind of go back in their head to like when they were trying to close the deal, and when it still was something they were aspiring to, was to be this person's person. And they go back there in their mind for a minute, and there's something that shifts. So for me, the long answer to that question is when I feel like people have lost that plot completely, they've stopped trying to close, they've lost sight of the fact that like this is their person. And, constructive criticism is important in any relationship, but it's still criticism. Like, and it never feels good to be criticized. And obviously, as someone who has a lot of management experience, that, there are ways to modify the behaviors of people around you that don't require direct criticism, even constructive criticism. Like praising the behavior that you're trying to facilitate is the way to do it. And in marriage, that's incredibly easy. It's incredibly easy because you have all these levers. You have affection, sex, romance, you have all of these things that you can weaponize in a good way to modify the behavior of this person and help improve the dynamic without them feeling criticized. So to me, when I see criticism, that to me is the biggest red flag.
That's so good. My husband actually was the one who taught me. He taught me that wasn't cool to even make jokes about your partner in front of other people. Yeah. And he was like, it's just a disrespectful thing. We don't do that in front of other people. Yeah. And I had really, my parents have been married forever. They're very happily married still. Yeah. They're incredible partners. But that was okay in their marriage. They could have a little. But when I saw it, I thought, yeah, actually it is kind of disrespectful. And, Chris and I, it's us against the world. And don't get me wrong, we fight, but I love how you say healthy couples fight. They just fight fairly.
Yeah.
And
so
it's
no low blows. It's no like, the weaponization of intimacy to me is the scariest thing in the world because it's so brave to love someone. Like it's so brave, like to go, I'm going to show you all of these soft spots. Like, you marry a Navy SEAL, he's got soft spots. I guarantee it, and maybe he doesn't show them to anybody, but he's got to be able to show them to you. And if when someone makes you the keeper of that, if you ever use that to like weaponize, like anyone who's ever been in a relationship for more than a month, you have a sentence, like you keep it in the chamber, hopefully forever. But you have a sentence you could say to your partner that would literally reduce them to tears. Like we all do. Like you have it with your friends. You have it. Anyone you know really well, you're like, I know what would crush them. And as a divorce lawyer, like I see what happens when people unleash that kraken, and you can't take it back. You can't take it back. And those little indignities, those little jabs, those little, like people's relationships fall apart the way people go bankrupt, very slowly and then all at once. And how companies fail. Very slowly and then all at once. And relationships the same thing. It's like very slowly and then you just go right off the cliff.
Oof. You know, I loved how you talked about why people shouldn't talk badly about their spouses. And you also had this story about a dog that my husband and I were watching last night.
Yeah.
And we were sort of laughing about it and saying, like, I think one of the interesting things about you and why I wanted you to come talk to our people is I've been through a divorce and it was terrible. Yeah. And it wasn't his fault entirely and it wasn't my fault entirely. We were two super flawed people that just couldn't figure it out. And if I don't have very many regrets in life, but that one's damn near close. Just like getting there, having that presupposition that we have to get married and I just should marry a person because there are these boxes that it fit into. And I take that on my shoulders. Like, I think that was my fault for even saying yes fully, and I was the one that wanted to leave. And so I'm always like, man, if I could go to young Codie and say a few things differently, it would be a lot of the stuff that you talk about. And it's weird that I would talk to young Codie about a divorce attorney. You know, that's not like my immediate thought. It's like maybe a fucking counselor, a priest, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you have this story about how a dog has a lot in common with how a good relationship is today and how we're kind of fucked up in the way we think about relationships. Will you share it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a dog person, so I've always had
Me
dogs.
too.
And I think they teach us a lot about love because if I've learned anything from my dogs, it's how absolutely insane it is to love anything. And I think part of it really is the acknowledgement, because they have this incredibly short lifespan, we know that a dog is not gifted to us permanently. It's loaned. Like, we're going to have it for this little period of time. And I think there's something about when someone says, it's going to be you and me forever, that there's a very human part to go, whew, great. All right, got that done now. I can focus on some other things, because there's no shortage of things to focus on. But really, like, love is loaned. Like, your husband's love is loaned to you and your love is loaned to him. It's not permanently gifted. And your marriage will end. Every marriage ends. It ends in death or divorce. It's weird because it's one of those things you go, I really hope yours ends in death. Like, what a weird thing to say out loud. But the truth is, like, your marriage will end. And you want it to end in death. You want it to end way down the road in death. But more likely than not, marriages end in divorce. But there is something about the love we have for a dog, the love we have for our pets, that I think knows that this is not going to be here forever and that we should be really enjoying it and really focusing on it and really being selfless in our love of it. And also, too, there's something about the way, I mean, dogs just are always cheering for us, Like, there's an old joke, like, if you want to know who loves you more, lock your spouse and your dog in the trunk of the car, open it up a half hour later and see which one's happy to see you.
My father-in-law told me that joke before we got married.
Yeah,
so,
it's a fair joke, But I really do think that we learn a lot about ourselves and about love and about loss by having pets. I think that for me, I've learned a lot about love from having a dog and also from my heart's infinite capacity for love. Because every time I go, I'm never doing that again, I could never love any dog the way I love Buster. I could never love any dog the way I love Huckleberry. There's no way I could love. And then somehow I do. And it doesn't take anything away from how much I loved them to have this new additional love in my life. But it reminds me that, that we have this infinite capacity for love and that it's incredibly brave. Like, it's incredibly brave to love something. It's incredibly brave because to love anything is to accept the fact that you will inevitably lose it. And so acknowledging that I'm going to hold on to this thing that I can never hold on to forever, and I'm going to open myself up to it, and I'm going to let it become part of me, I think is the bravest thing a person can do. And I think, if you're not scared, it's not brave. Like, I'm sure your husband and everyone he's ever served with, like, I'm sure they've all been scared.
Of course.
And that's what makes them brave.
100%.
Is that they're scared and they do the thing that needs to be done anyway. And I think love should be approached that way.
Why do you think that you're not more jaded, having seen all these divorces? I mean, I've met a lot of attorneys, And we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but you seem to be a tough guy, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, tattoos, divorce attorney, some of the biggest divorces in the world you've done.
Yeah.
But you also seem really kind and very open-hearted. How did you keep that?
I blame my mom. She was, I was the perfect amalgam of my two parents. My father was a Annapolis Vietnam veteran, like really hard, really rigid man. My mom was like left wing, so far left, it was like the leftist you could ever be, and progressive liberal and a total hippie. So I guess I had to become a lawyer because I had to see both sides of every argument always. They never voted for the same person, but they really loved each other. They were married over 50 years till my mom passed away. My mom passed away 10 years ago today.
I'm so sorry.
And no, she lived an amazing life. She was an amazing person. And I think a lot of it came from her. There's a line from a Joseph Brodsky poem. It's one of my favorite poems. It's called A Song. He wrote it when his wife died. And the refrain of the poem is, I wish you were here, dear. I wish you were here. And one of the lines is, I wish you were here, dear. I wish you were here. I wish I knew no astronomy when the stars appear. And there's something to me about when you watch how fragile love is and you watch so many people lose it, and you feel and you sit across the table from people who are in so much pain because they had it and they had this path and this plan and they were certain, and then it's gone. Sometimes they screwed it up. Sometimes it's through no fault of their own. Their spouse just came home and said, and there's something about when you were around that all the time that you realize like how beautiful and fragile love is. Like, because it is the greatest, anyone, like people have said to me like, oh, how do you believe in love still? And I'm like, that's like saying, like, do you believe in gravity? Like gravity is there whether I believe in it or not. Like love is, of course I believe in love. Love's everywhere. Love's the only thing. Like all this other stuff we're doing, why are we doing it? We're doing it because we want love. We want to feel worthy of love. We want to care for the people we love. We want to have some level of safety, security, and control for the people we love or for ourselves so we can continue to enjoy time with the people we love. It all comes back to love. Like all of it comes back to love. So watching the fragility of love, watching the quote unquote failure of love has not made me less of a romantic. It's not made me less. It makes me more humbled by this vital, beautiful, fragile thing. And even though I know the astronomy, I still think the stars are beautiful. Like, I don't think that knowing that love can go horribly wrong has ever for a moment shaken my faith in how important it is and how beautiful it is. Because even as a divorced person myself, even as someone who has had love and seen that love end in the way you didn't expect it to end, like I am a better person for every one of those loves. And even when you say like, oh, I look back at young Codie and I kind of want to say to her like, oh, maybe this is the wrong, like, you would never be who you are if you hadn't that experience. And you would not have the marriage you have now if you hadn't had that experience. And even if the lesson of that experience was to show you, okay, that isn't what I need. So I need to find something different than that in some ways. Like, and that's where I think there's so much overlap in my relationship on perspective and a lot of the things you do in terms of business and entrepreneurship is it's a lot about, can people take the same ingredients and make a different meal with it, Yeah. And we all know the answer is yes. Like, we all know, like, you can take the same people in a business and restructure it and change the way they interact with each other as manager and employee. And you can make an entirely new business with the exact same ingredients. You could give Thomas Keller or, any amazing, Michelin star chef the same ingredients as me, and they're going to make something incredible out of it because they have this technique and ability. So I think it's the same thing. Like, I think that the ingredients of who we are, when paired with other different ingredients, we can make something radically different. Or even in a relationship that's struggling, we can take those same ingredients and figure out ways to make something different with it.
Here's something nobody tells you. When I buy businesses, I don't just look at the cash flow. I look at how fast I can make them look credible online. Why? Because perception creates opportunity. Customers, lenders, even sellers judge you by your digital footprint before they ever shake your hand. That's why I like GoDaddy Aero. You plug in what you're building, and it instantly spins up a professional website, logo, email, even social posts. In other words, it gives you instant credibility. And credibility is currency. I've turned invisible businesses into deal-ready, customer-ready plays just by tightening their online presence. That's leverage. That's how you win. So if you want to look like you belong in the owner's seat from day one, go to GoDaddy.com/Codie Sanchez and launch with GoDaddy Aero today.
Okay, I want to talk about there are a couple of different things you said. Like one of the lines that I love is you said, people say they fell out of love. No, they stopped doing the things that kept love alive.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
I think the biggest problem in relationships is that we just stop paying attention. Yeah. Like we just stop paying attention. And there's all these little tiny things when you first fall in love with someone that they do that you absolutely love and that make you feel loved, and that you do for them and that probably make them feel loved. But like, when's the last time, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but when's the last time that you said to your partner or your spouse, hey, what are some things I do that make you feel loved? Or when's the last time you said, hey, you know when you get that, when you see that I'm out of that sparkling water that I like and you just like buy a case of it when you're out at the store, that makes me feel so seen and so loved. Like we kind of don't do that. Like we just don't do it. It's sort of like, oh yeah, like, you know, this person's with me now. Like they're legally obliged to be here. Like I don't have to do all that anymore. And it's absolutely true. Like you don't. Like, but there's so many things when you first meet someone and you're kind of trying to close the deal. You know, it's like the job interview. At the interview and the first week of work, like everything is new and fascinating and wonderful. And it's like, oh my God, they do this. And I'm just so glad to have the job. Like, this is so great. Like, I'm so tired of sending resumes. Like, I got the job. And like 4 months in, you're like, oh, you know, I mean, well, it's the same job, but your perception of how special it is and how lucky you are to have it has now been completely jaded by the fact that you have it. And so I think in relationships, we stop paying attention. And when we stop paying attention, you know, no single raindrop is responsible for the flood, but the flood is just a bunch of little raindrops. And so people always, when they're talking about marriages ending, they're like, oh, you know, and I get this a lot, like, because not everybody interviews with the level of nuance you do. They'll say, like, what are 4 things that people can do to save their marriage? And you're like, okay, or what are the main 3 reasons why marriages end, you know? And I'm always tempted to say like a snarky answer when they're like, what's the number 1 reason people get divorced? I'm like, well, because they don't want to be married anymore. You know, like, you know, that, but really what they want me to say is infidelity, you know, or financial impropriety, or, but those are symptoms. Like infidelity is a symptom of the problem. The problem is almost always the same, disconnection. Disconnection from self and then disconnection from the other person. Because the 2 biggest problems are we don't know what we want and we don't know how to express it to another person. And the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. I mean, I think in both of our lines of work, we know that like the most dangerous lies are the things you tell yourself, oh, no, well, no, we're going to next month, next quarter, we're going to turn this thing around. Like the lies you tell yourself are so dangerous in marriage because you can't possibly identify what it is you need, what your partner needs, how you're meeting it, how your needs are not getting met. If you're not having an honest conversation with yourself and then ideally with your partner in some fashion.
Yeah. You know, it's fascinating because one of the things Chris is really good at is he will tell me frequently, like we have to have the difficult conversations that most people want to push aside because if we don't, they're a little bit like a festering wound, right? You just let it like rot away at the edges, And so sure, it is about, I don't know, trash left on the countertop, but it's not really about that. There's like something deeper.
But see, trash left on the countertop is a great example. Because trash left, like it's not about the pasta. Like trash left on the countertop is not about trash left on the countertop. It's about why are you not respecting our space?
Yeah, exactly.
It's about why do you not know that kind of bothers me? And if you do know it and you do it anyway, why is my feeling not important to you? Like, so that's kind of everything, you know? Like how you do anything is how you do everything. And the passion with which you do it. Because if you think about it, that actually can be equally leveraged as a sign of love. Because if he doesn't mind having the thing on the counter and he knows you do, and he moves it off the counter, then he's saying, I love you. Like, that's what that is. Like, he's saying, best example I have is throw pillows. Like, I would never have a throw pillow in my whole life.
What is it with
what
us and
man
us?
would be like
know.
throw pillows? Like, we just don't.
Just love
but
'em.
but women love them. And so I really could tell I was in love when I was like, oh yeah, I should straighten the throw pillows up, you know? Because it was like, it's in no way important to me. But I'd love to believe that my partner would see that and go, he doesn't give a shit about throw pillows. Like, he likes me. Because that's what that is. Like, that's what that is. Like, that's a sign of love. And to me, we rarely say these things out loud. Like, we rarely say to our partner, these dumb little things you do that make me feel seen and loved and cared for. And these dumb little things you do that make me feel not valued and not cared for and kind of dismissed or ignored. But I feel like that's the stuff. And if we could isolate on that stuff and find ways to have discussions about that stuff that aren't going to bring out defensiveness in our partner, or we find ways to like engage in what I call loving behavior modification. You know, the best example I give of that is I dated, I'm a lawyer by trade, so I have to do I always have to be clean shaven. Like, your husband gets to have the cool beard, you know, or
but he gets couldn't for like 15 years.
Oh yeah.
So that
well, now it's like he's bouncing
now
back.
he's like,
yeah.
fuck you.
Or like Chris,
beard.
Williamson has the oops, I didn't know I was sexy stubble. You know, which is like, Chris is going to think I'm like man crushing on him now. But like,
He's
it
gonna
really,
like it.
yeah, if I was gonna, he'd be a good man crush. But the truth is, like, I have to be clean shaven. And I have one of those like thick beards that so on the weekends I tend not to shave because it's like I have 2 days off from shaving. I don't have to go to court. It's good. It's just like, you're never going to get me in a suit on the weekend. If someone invites me to a wedding on the weekend, I'm like, I'm not wearing a suit. It's not happening. I wear a suit 5 days a week. So I remember dating a girl and she had really sensitive skin. And so when I would kiss her, and I was a little stubbly, like I'd be on the weekend, she would get like a little redness, you know, like y'all have sensitive skin.
Yeah.
And she would be like, oh, yeah, your beard is prickly. And it really brought out something defensive in me. Like, and I was very I wouldn't say it, but I find myself thinking you should be happy that I'm kissing you. And now I got to shave when I'm going to see you and Monday through Friday. Like, this is great. Like, I've never no break from this whatsoever. Needless to say, that relationship didn't work out. Not solely for that reason, although maybe it was a symptom. The next woman I dated had the exact same issue, but she was a genius because I would shave. Usually it was on Monday morning if she spent the weekend or something. Monday morning, she would come in after I'd shaved and she'd be like, oh God, you're so sexy when you're clean shaven. And she would like press up against my skin and she'd be like, you're like Don Draper in Mad Men. I love it, you know? Dude, I would shave 3 times a day. I would, by the way, I was like a little kid. Like, I would shave and then I would come downstairs and I'd be like, I just shaved, you know? And she would be like, oh my God, I love it. Yeah. Now, she was doing the exact same thing. She was trying to get me to shave for her benefit. But she went about it brilliantly because I really felt like, oh, this is something she likes about me. And this is an opportunity I have to become even more attractive to her and to have some praise from her. What was it? It was the exact same thing as behavior modification, but it was approached from this place of positive reinforcement, reframing what it is that you want. And to me, that's how in a successful marriage, you shape the behavior of your partner.
God, it's so good. I'm going to take this so literally because
do
now when I want him to not have a beard, you can't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, you got to watch old episodes of Mad Men and be like, you look so, remember when you were, oh God, that was so hot. Most guys will be like, really? Okay. You know, if we're going to get laid from it, we usually will do it. We'll usually do what needs to be done.
You know, you have said a few funny things about what men want.
Yeah.
And I think you had a funny answer that I liked to what the male version version of flowers
Nudes.
is?
Yeah, nudes. Yeah. It was very funny because that was actually off the top of my head. Somebody said, like, what's the male equivalent of getting flowers? I was like, nudes. Oh, wait, was that too quick of an answer? Let me think about it for a minute. Nudes. Yeah. Well, because it really is like we're visual. This is important. But it's that same, because what are flowers? Like, it really